Hello. That sticker notification noise was in perfect time and tune to the music, so thank you for that. Hello with two L's. That chat, please. There we go. Hello. How are we doing? Welcome to impromptu stream. Didn't really have a plan for this until about an hour ago. So, and now I have two. So you can sort of decide. It's going to be, generally speaking, a doodly stream. So plans, I know. I was going to do music, but I need to get in my head properly how the whole Forest of Doom project is going to sound. I'm not entirely sure the piece of music we made last time is going to go there. It's nice, but it's not quite right. I might work with it, who knows. It's an oops. How you doing? Welcome to Doodle Stream. So let's go to here's a papery thing. Thought it was a bit boring just seeing plain white. You're gonna doodle along. Wonderful. Right, now here's the question. What are we gonna doodle? Are we going to doodle? Option number one. Some characters I have yet to design for the next Outliers comic. Or number two, some silly doodles of a little parsnip mascot thing, which I've been doing.
My sons, attack the gates.
I forgot that happens. Thanks for the auto host. Hello, Emily. How you doing? And another one. Are we gonna hear it again? No? No? Yeah.
My sons, attack the gates.
Yes. Are we gonna do? Thank you, Chibi, for the auto host. Are we going to do? Yes. Are we going to design some characters I have yet to design for the next Outliers thing, or are we going to design some little doodles of a parsnip mascot that I want to use for the purposes of properly advertising this stream, because I never tell anyone I'm doing it. And I thought it'd be nice to have little doodles to do that. Doodles to doodle to doodle that. You know what I mean. Which one would you be more interested in? Both? I can only do one at a time, I'm afraid. They're very different styles. Tell you what, you can stop watching now, and then next week I'll do the other one, and then you can play the VOD and the stream at the same time, then you get both. But the question remains, what? Mascot? We can do mascot. Okay, cool. Character design sounds fun too, but you're curious about the mascot. That's fair. I've done a couple. I did these the other day. Where are they? It's like the parsnip emote that I did, but I thought I'd get them to do something. Where did I put this? In here? Yes. Yeah. Right. So here was a general sort of gamey one. Oop. It was supposed to be on the thing. There, why are you there? So yes, that was no. What are you doing, Clip? Stop it. It'll ideally help future streams, hopefully. So yeah, this was one for sort of advertising gamey stuff. I'd like to have several different ones on the same sort of theme, and this was the one for music to go with the Forest of Doom sort of soundtrack thing. Yeah, so we'll just come up with ideas. So let's come up with some appropriate background music. iTunes might pop up in your face in a second. Hopefully that's not the case. Yes, no? Or it's just not going to do anything at all. That's also a possibility. There it is. Go away. What are we going to listen to in the background for Muzak? Something sort of more upbeat. Because I always do like Hollow Knight, stuff like that. But I do also always do Cuphead, but that would work for this. I'm glad you like them. So yeah, I just want to come up with sort of several on the theme, several for game streams, several for music streams, for art, so on and so forth. Just that I can sort of put these sort of like in front of the game I'm playing or whatever. The vacant stare at the music. Well, that's yeah, probably be a general theme. Let's do Cuphead. Why not? I've got it. Might as well. Turn you down so it's not loud. There we go. Jazzy. Get those jazz drums going. Right. So how do we go forwards? Let's do. I had an idea while I was waiting for the stream to start for a gamey one. So let's do that. What pose are they going to be in? I don't know. But if you have any more sort of ideas, I'm sort of leaning forward. Yeah, if you have any ideas for sort of things that they could be doing. So yeah, today's going to be a little relaxing sort of stream. I hope you've all had good weeks thus far. How are we gonna sort of... that maybe? Do I like the leaning forward or do I not? Maybe better leaning back actually. Also trying to go for more sort of exaggerated shapes. I'm also trying to go for stronger colours, which is something I don't usually do. I'm doing that with October as well. Trying to get a stronger sense of colour rather than the desaturated drabness I tend to do. Thank you, John Cullen, for your inspiration in that department. Souls Jar. You need to Dark Souls Bloodborne 1 because of Souls Jar. Absolutely. I was going to set up a thing with my bot, actually. I thought of this morning, which was every time somebody does Souls Jar, I was going to have it so that it instead of replying with clink, it replies with a clink and then how many coins are now in the jar, and it would just go up by one every time someone does it. Sort of keep track of it all. So yeah, let's try and keep this roughly on model. What outstretched? Your tablet pen is doing the most. That's interesting. Is it magical? Does it do all the work for you? I'm assuming there's a second half to that sentence. Since you have your second work screen connected at home, whenever you connect the tablet, you can only move the cursor on the second screen and not the main one. Okay. Oh, so you do... I suppose you don't have a... You have a sort of typical... Not typical, what's the word? I want to say passive, but they're all active. You have a drawing tablet that doesn't have a screen in it, as it were. So you're controlling the cursor on a screen. It would be very awkward if it was controlling both screens, because then you'd only have like half the space to work in. Bit annoying. Yeah, is there no way of telling it which one to manipulate? I don't know how big the pupils. I did this. When did I do this? The beginning of the week? It was a while ago. But yes, so I was gonna do streams of myself working this week. But various events conspired to cause that not to happen. You check your settings, but you can move the cursor across both, so odd. Yeah, so sorry, I was going to stream my work during the day, but events conspired to get in the way. On the flip side, I did make a nice birthday cake for my mum, so that took up a morning. So next week, hopefully, I should be able to start doing the worky stuff, which will include the other option for this stream, which was designing characters for the next Outliers thing. That's the first thing I have to do before I get cracking on that. Actually, I don't need to do that. I can block it out first without knowing what the characters look like. Surface size. Also not looking in the right direction. Oh, another thing to mention is that the stickers for Patreon did actually come through for this for next month, because the company who make them said that they were going in lockdown for 3 weeks, naturally. What does a controller look like? And they sent that email on Thursday, I think it was. That was the last day that they were trading. And approximately 10 minutes after them sending that, they sent the confirmation that my order had been shipped. So they got that in there right before they closed up, which was very nice. So yes, the cat stickers have been printed, but that does mean that next month, or I'll have to think of something else for May, which we'll have to do in April. So I'd like it to be a physical thing. I don't know, like there? Sure, why not? I'd like it to be a physical reward, but precisely what it would be, I don't know. So we can work on that together, work out what that'll be. I'd like to do maybe just a physical doodle of some description. Which I need to get on the digital doodles for this month as well. Herb! Plug that controller back in. This is the reference, is the constantly unplugging controller. Fun fact, at the end of last stream, that wasn't actually the sound of my controller unplugging. That was the sound of iTunes being annoying. But it works, so... Wide stance. I want them to, you know... It's very easy and very boring for me to just have them sounding like that. So I thought I'd try something different. As I did with these. I want this to be a more dynamic character than I am, so... Are we going to keep the hair from the first one, maybe? Is that going to be part of the design? The scaling triangle. You finished what you were working on, and now you have some other things to get done, but you know you've been a bit MIA, which is why you wanted to stop by just for a little bit. Anyways, Elu also dropped a whip in the Discord for anyone curious about what you're working on right now. Yeah, thank you for popping ins and all that. It's always nice to see you. I hope your projects and all that are coming along very nicely. I am not good with impromptu words of encouragement, but you know what I mean. It needs to be. It's nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. There, words. That's what I mean. Um. Something like that. Blah, blah. Close enough. That looks awful. Why does that look awful? Tell you what, let's see how it takes us. No uniform rigidity. It's just hair. You hope nobody's gonna come in your room while you're drawing. You don't know how to explain why you're colouring a cyborg man in lingerie. That would be a tricky explanation. Then again, the explanation itself might not necessarily help matters. It's not my fault. You see, there's this character called Kink Vader. Whoa, 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 whoa. Is it weird to give them thumbs when they're just blobs of arms? It's what? That can do. They can grow thumbs on occasion. It's part of the way of the parsnip, I guess. There's opposable thumbs and there's occasional thumbs. That trombone. They have thumbs when it's convenient, yes. And it's convenient for gaming, and as a consequence they needed their thumbs until they realised the controller was broken. That eye is definitely too big. So yeah, I don't know if we want to spend time on stream inking these and colouring them and all that sort of stuff, or whether we would just want to doodle loads. And then I'll finish them off elsewhere. Something about this doesn't seem quite right, but that's fine, I suppose. Is it me or do they look more inquisitive from that direction than they do from that direction? That doesn't make any sense. That'll do. Let's doodle some more. More gamey ones. Some nice relaxing music. Do let me know if the music's too loud or too quiet or whatever. It looks okay. Used to be a Souls game one? Yeah, I suppose. How's that gonna work? You can't fit a Solaire helmet over the top of that parsnip. You make him do the Solaire pose. I suppose that makes sense. But what would they be wearing? I mean, they could have the helmet just sort of perched on top, with like some of the leaves poking out the front. You can wear the helmet badly, yeah. Seems fitting. Or not fitting, as the case may be. Hang on, just might mute the mic because they blow my nose. I think I've got a cold coming on. It's just a cold, don't worry. Eileen the Crow Cape. Ooh, that's a lot of feathers. It does, shush you. It does feel appropriate just to have like a mishmash of all the different games. So like you'd have like the... I don't know why Dark Souls 2 I always associate with like a fur sort of collar kind of thing. I think is that not the cover art? Or something, or am I just going nuts? Hang on, let me look. Dark Souls 2 feels much more sort of European fantasy than it does sort of weird dark. Yeah, it is. It's like, yeah, like fluffy fur-lined stuff. Feels a little bit more sort of, the designs are based in some sort of reality. Rather than whatever the Xanthus set is. Like, hello, welcome to Dark Souls. I love it, don't get me wrong. But that ain't real. Also, hello, Oobs. How was the reset? Has it fixed things? I fixed it, yeah! I've turned it off and on again. It's the tried and trusted method. So okay, so I need to... It's a little bit of a lean back, isn't it? And then like... really tight together. I'd say thank you for the rock, but that's for Rubes, so yay. This one needs to be sort of down and squidge. Down, and then just squidge. You kind of got the hint when you tried to draw on your second screen and all of your brush stabilization was gone again. Oh dear. I love it when I've been drawing for like 5 minutes. I take a sip of my drink, and then I go and draw again, and all of a sudden it just... You know, it goes from being a pencil to like just going like that. It's like, cheers. And then you've got to click off the screen with the mouse, and then click back on it with the stylus, and then it fixes it. If anyone here wants to get into digital art that isn't already, get used to stuff like that. So what would Dark Souls 3 be? Got the Bloodborns, got the Dark Souls 1 with the pose. What would Dark Souls 3 entail? Does Dark Souls 3 have any personality of its own? Like, I love that game, but... it just kind of feels like sort of, I don't know, unremarkable in a weird way. Not really, yeah. And it's an odd one. I would say it's a better game, but it's just got less personality than the other two. It's beautiful. It's got a much more kind of solid world in terms of sort of feel and flow, and sort of structure. But yeah, I don't know. Just doesn't have any real cultural footprint. Yeah, I know. Yeah, like for you know, for all. I'm trying to think of an analogy here. It's like, for all the things people can say about Dark Souls 2, it does at least stick with you. It's like Final Fantasy 8. It's got its problems, but it's got personality. Was Dark Souls 3 the one with the ash that was very wet for some reason? Yes, it was. Wet ash and rocks that looked like plastic. But I was playing Dark Souls 2 recently, and it's in that as well. So didn't even have that for itself. Kind of took the good parts of the earlier games and put them together. I mean, it did make new stuff. Like, I always hear people say that, oh, it's just, you know, it's just fan service and whatever, and it's not really worth, you know, that's why it's bad or whatever. And it's like, there's not really all that much that's repeated. It's just that the new stuff isn't remarkable. There's a lot of thematic repetitions, definitely. You know, a lot of the bosses are essentially thematic derivations or rehashes of previous bosses, but you know, the Crystal Sage is an interesting thing, but it's essentially what if Big Hat Logan but Pinwheel. Are we gonna, why are we talking about Dark Souls? Like, when people talk about Dark Souls, they talk about 1 and 2 and then Bloodborne. It's odd, isn't it? I'm trying to, it's difficult to pinpoint why Dark Souls 3 is unremarkable, because it shouldn't be. It's big, it's epic, it's beautiful, but it's just bleh. It's very strange. Like, I have I have said on many an occasion that it's not there. I have said on many an occasion that Dark Souls 2, for all its flaws, has possibly the most diverse and colourful and interesting location design. All of the areas have very sort of distinct and strong feels to them, and you know, there's a lot of very sort of pretty areas and stuff like that, whereas there are maybe 1 or 2 in Dark Souls 1 and a few in Dark Souls 3. It's just sort of, Dark Souls 3 is just generally very sort of high fidelity, high detail sort of thing. But Dark Souls 2 has got some, like, the Shrine of Amana and the Hades Tower of Flame. It's just this wonderful designs. It's just a shame they're not really doing anything. What does Celeste look like? Okay. I can't really put that. Maybe the other side. Because I want the hair to go. I want the leaf hair to go through it. It doesn't really go through because the helmet just sort of has kind of generic sort of Crusader looking helmet. It does have the feather though, which is nice. Is it both of them or just one? How did I do it? I just sort of did it downwards on that. Yeah, I reckon we can have one at the front. The way you say Dark Souls 1 was the first good installment, Dark Souls 2 taught how not to use shield and was really confusing but honestly fun, and Dark Souls 3 just didn't have any new aspect for the player to sink their teeth in. It did if you didn't play Bloodborne, because it is essentially the Bloodborne of Dark Souls. Dark Souls 3 is the game they originally wanted to make, as every other Dark Souls game was remade halfway through. True, Dark Souls 2, I can forgive a lot of Dark Souls 2, given the fact that they basically developed it in a year. Having to scrap everything they did prior. I didn't realise Dark Souls 1 had that same sort of thing. But yeah, it feels like a Dark Souls game. Dark Souls 3 feels like a Dark Souls game in the Bloodborne engine, and that's... I'm not complaining. It's a lot faster, a lot more rolling and stuff like that. Continuing the Dark Souls 2 tradition of shields are useless. They're not actually useless. I did a no healing playthrough. They are very helpful in that. But generally speaking, they're pretty useless. I don't know. I feel like I'm glad they moved on, which is sort of nice. I'm glad they did the Bloodborne, which was very difficult, different, sorry, and then did Sekiro, which is just a completely different beast. So I'm hoping they continue just sort of trying different things. Dark Souls 1 was a reskin of Demon Souls, which they never finished, and Dark Souls 2 was basically made in 6 to 8 months after they scrapped everything, yeah. I didn't realise... I've never played Demon Souls, so I would love to play it one day and sort of see, oh, okay, so this is where that came from in Dark Souls, and so on and so forth. I hear it's easier. They hadn't quite... sort of garnered their reputation for difficulty just by that point. And Dark Souls was, as you said, the first proper get good. Strange hat. Honestly, it's kind of difficult with the Parsnip to get a decent line of motion going. Because I keep getting confused by the curved lines either side, which peter down. If it was a cylinder, it wouldn't be so bad, but because they both come to a point, gotta get that line of motion sort of... There's a line of motion on the front, a line of motion in the centre, and then the 2 lines either side. Dark Souls Review Hour! Yay! Dark Souls 2, also, wonderful variety of armour, with quite significant differences in stats and upgrades as well, which is something that Dark Souls 1 didn't really have. You got the heavy armor and the light armor and the stuff that's good and the stuff that's bad, but upgrading armor is basically useless in Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2 is actually very good, if you get the right armor. He still needs the... It's pretty difficult if you were used to Dark Souls. Your brother played Demon Souls first and he struggled. Oh, weren't. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. You still need to get past the Undead Parish. That's fair. Like, I can't really... Is this your first Soulsborne game? As 'twere. The mechanics in Demon Souls are simpler. You can very clearly see how it was just a precursor they built on. I mean, a lot of... It's clear they wanted to make Demon Souls 2. But they also wanted to make it for a larger audience, and Sony wouldn't let them have the Demon Souls name, obviously. So they just said, well... It's basically Demon Souls, but Dark Souls. And then that gives us an excuse to reinvent the lore, which is cool. I'm a fan of Dark Souls' lore. Yeah. You played 2? Oh yes, you said. Yeah, I mean, you're playing them in... apart from the fact that I played Bloodborne first, you're playing them in roughly the same order as me. Although I will say that I clicked with the mechanics of 1 far better than I did 2. They reused a few boss animations. When you play, you'll go, wait a second, this is this guy. Fair enough. I do know of some of the bosses in Demon Souls, which is a shame. I'd like to go into it as fresh as possible. That doesn't look very good at all. Get that perspective going. Oh, the vague connection. I have heard, and largely disagree, with the idea that people actually enjoy something more if it's been spoiled. I personally don't generally agree with that. I tend to enjoy it less and think, oh, imagine how good this would have been to have found that out when it happened. But I was watching Inside Number 9, which is a TV show I very much enjoy but forgot to keep watching. And I watched the last series, and unfortunately I had the last episode of the last series spoiled for me by one of the writers of the show. That's a new one. And I thought, oh, that's a shame. I guess this is what the twist is, so we'll see if we enjoy it. But because the way that show's written, they put lots of little clues and things so that you can sort of go back and rewatch it and go, oh, now that makes sense now, and all that sort of stuff. And I can say actually that episode was very fun if you already knew what the twist was. So yeah, that was just a tangential thing that occurred to me because we were talking about things being spoiled and stuff. Yeah, watch Inside Number 9. It's great. I really don't like the work of either of the writers apart from Inside Number 9, but Inside Number 9 is excellent. And not to bring up Hannibal again, absolutely. The amount I talk about Dark Souls, you can talk about Hannibal. Go ahead. Eileen's Cloak. Let's try and get out of it. It's called the Crowfeather Garb, I believe. Ooh, look at that. That's some tasty design right there, look at that. That show has so much rewatch value that knowing how it ends doesn't take away from anything. Marvellous. See, that's how you got to do it. If something can be spoiled, write it in such a way that the twist or whatever it is that gets spoiled adds new information to things that have happened. And then it's, yeah, like it almost adds to it, exactly. I want to talk about the last episode of Inside Number 9 so I can talk about that, but obviously that would spoil it, so I'm not going to. Those kinds of spoils aren't too bad. You've been spoiled about things that sound kind of like that before playing games before, and still enjoy them a lot. It was fun catching the little clues they put in. That's a thing that's well written for a twist should still be enjoyable after you know the twist. If not, incentivize you to play it again or watch it again or whatever. Need to get it back and complete Dark Souls 1. You tried a while ago, got to the Rite of Kindling early, and then just kind of stopped. I mean, if you decided to go down to the catacombs early, that's a way of not enjoying the game. I mean, Pinwheel's easy for that very reason, so you can go down there early. But the catacombs themselves... You can't get enough of stuff like that, those kinds of twists. You will love Inside Number 9. There's 31 episodes. Watch them all. It's not all about twists. It's an anthology show. Every episode's completely different, set in a completely different location, often completely different genres of TV. It's very good. But a lot of them have very good twists. Some of them don't have any twist at all, which is nice. The twist is that there was no twist. You homeward boned back, but just lost interest in you playing XCOM 2. That's fair. These games aren't for everyone. I didn't think I'd enjoy them. I only got into Bloodborne because of the aesthetic. And then I played it and I was like, oh! Well, actually, no. I played it and I was like, ah! And then after a couple of weeks break, I came back and went, ah! So... You can start Hannibal from episode 1 for the 11th time and just discover new things that leads to the conclusion it's just chef's kiss. I don't know why I said chef's kiss rather than going, mwah, but, yeah. Right, how do I do this? got like a kind of collary thing. Ah, that motif. Good. Yeah, how do the arms work with this? Hang on. That's how the arms work. The Magnus Archives is like that too. I still need to. That's still on my bookmarks. It's there. I will get around to it at some point. I'm kind of more interested in it because it turns out, from what I've heard, it's not really like what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot more like the things I wanted to make as a kind of radio play. And then I'm kind of glad it's not, because then I won't feel, oh, they did it better than me. As always happens. If someone's got there before me and they did it way better. You generally don't mind spoilers, because if the thing is good enough, you'll get into it so much that it doesn't matter anyways, but its well-written twist is always on. Sorry, I will also point out, inside number 9, if you don't know about it, it's quite dark. The first episode kind of sets the tone for how dark it can get. Sometimes it's very silly, sometimes it's not dark at all, but it can definitely get dark. There was one episode in the last series that was just... Like, I'm not talking... Well, there are definitely episodes that are like kind of, you know, gothic horror kind of dark, but there are other episodes that are just unpleasant. So, yeah. But there are other episodes that are just genuinely really sweet, and ones that make me cry, because they're annoying. Those writers making me cry, how dare they? It's not really a radio play, yeah. You love 3, you got 300 hours into it, guess the 1 just feels slow by comparison. I have heard a lot of people think that. I personally think 3 feels fast by comparison, if that makes sense. So I kind of prefer the rhythm of 1, but it's, you know, to each their own. You said the name so many times, you're still like, what's the name of this thing? That's why you never get around to recommendations. Inside number 9. The theme of it is that every episode takes place in one location, which is number 9. Sometimes that's house number 9, or the last episode I watched was a police car number 9, booth number 9. There was one that takes place in like a phone, a volunteer call center in booth number 9, all that sort of stuff. So that's the theme of all the episodes. But beyond that, they're completely... Yes, inside number 9. By Reese Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, 2 of the League of Gentlemen. Again, not a huge fan of the League of Gentlemen, but... I'm worried I've overhyped it, because I think one of the reasons I really, really liked it was that I knew absolutely nothing about it going into it. And I just watched the first episode on a whim and was like, oh, I like this. But like I say, it's an anthology show. The episodes are completely different. Give it a few. If you don't like any of them, you're probably safe not to watch them. But no one ever died of a bit of overhyping. I wonder how many people die in that show. Interesting question. Oh, and some of them are genuinely scary as well. Not a lot of them. They're technically comedies. I very rarely find them funny. Again, I think that's because I don't share the sense of humour with the writers, but they are very good writers. So, anyway. I wonder which came first. Did I suppose Black Mirror came first, didn't it? Because like anthology shows are a bit of a thing now, aren't they? Scary in what sense? I mean, what ones are actually properly scary? The live one, that was scary. They did a live one called Deadline. when I heard they were doing a live one, I already knew what it was going to be. But the execution was actually very scary for me. I'm a wimp when it comes to that sort of stuff. But I think most of them are fine. Usually the last episodes of the series tend to be the scarier ones. So that's like 1 in 6. Or they tend to be like the more sort of horror-oriented, not necessarily scary, but you're a baby about horror. There's not a lot of like proper, definitely not a lot of jump scares. The live one is probably the only one that's got those. Good, you don't like jump scares. I'm trying to think, are there any? There might. It's more just like dawning realization horror, if that makes sense, rather than why you freaked out every time something happened suddenly in Darkstream. That's fair. That was an event. Frudge. Oh, I want to design a monster called the Frudge now. Good horror rarely feels like horror right away. Yeah, it's. But like, I want to talk about the show. I can't. But there's one episode. Was it the last series? It might have been the series before. Which was, I would call it a horror, but it's not a horror in the normal sense. It's a horror in the halfway through you realize what's going on, and it's like, oh no, and it's that kind of thing. Hannibal is horror, but it's also one of the funniest shows you've ever watched. There's definitely humor in this, and they don't take themselves enormously seriously at all. Like I said, it is technically a comedy show, even though I personally don't find it hugely funny. But I don't care, because it's just good. Which is rare. It's rare to find a comedy where you're like, I don't find this funny, but I really like it. Yeah, we'll just do Solaire Helmet and Bro Feather Garb. They're my two faves. Oh, fridge horror. I thought you were saying grudge horror. I thought you were referring to The Grudge. There you go. There's a very bad, what's it called? Hamming distance between between those two words. Even if the comedy comes from guessing if the food is people or not, and Hannibal just keeps saying food people puns, and you're just like, that's fair. It's a style of humor. There's a fine line between a lot of comedy and horror if you think about it. It's all sort of like trying to get that kind of visceral reaction. With humor, it's a kind of, well, dissecting humor and laughter and comedy is a very fickle business, but it's the same. It's a very similar sort of thing. People can laugh at horror, people, that kind of sudden snap of emotion can make people laugh. Yeah, but like I say, I'm not a huge horror. I like gothic horror. I like horrific ideas, but I don't like being scared, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's some drawings. Let's do some more. Is it clear that's... I mean, I probably should have sort of more wibbly wobbly, thin. That's more like it. I did a good one and then I undid it. But yes, I would also say that like I say, there's a lot of what I would say societal horror in inside number 9. So if there's a lot of things that should probably have trigger warnings on them. Let's get a bit of dynamism going on. You don't like horror mostly because at the moment you're usually fine, and then at night your mind just goes wild. That's what happened to me on the live one. I was constantly feeling like there was something behind me. So yeah, Deadline. That's the one you should probably avoid, and you're probably not missing out on much. To be honest, it's not. It's a live show, and there's a twist. You can probably already work out what the twist is. And they did do it all live, and I'm following a composer called Christian Henson, and I subsequently discovered he does the music for this show. And he did a video, you can watch it online, of him performing the soundtrack to the live show live during the show. He didn't compose it and then they played it. He was at a keyboard in the booth with the director playing the soundtrack as it happened, which is completely unnecessary, but very cool. Took you years to stop sleeping with your back against the wall because you read a series of scary stories. Absolutely avoid Deadline. Why am I doing that? Let's do something else. It's been an hour. I've done 2 drawings. Don't watch a lot of modern horror, especially movies, but that's because you're really big on gore. When you say you're really big on gore, do you mean you like it or you don't like it? Because gore's not my thing either. I'm quite bad at looking at. My parents watch sort of like vet programs and stuff like that, and can't do it. Because you're not really big on gore. Fair enough. That's an important distinction. For years you checked behind every door because you once dreamt there was a vampire behind the door. That's fine, because they need to be invited in. So you're alright, keep the door closed. You're bad at typing today, it seems. Oh, I'm awful at typing. It's one of the reasons I lurk. Do you know what? I just realised we should probably... Can I fit that over the... No, that'd be too messy, wasn't it? I was going to do the... the Mensis cage thing. Ah. Also in that dream, vampire hamsters that turned you once you were bitten 3 times. That's an interesting one. That depends on the vampire. There's a lot of vampire myths. Like, throw rice on the ground. They have to count it. All that weird stuff. Yeah, I think it's fine. Maybe do another one with the... I'll do it at some point. Some other point. Other drawings. Let's do another one. Did someone make the Blades of Mercy? Of course they did. There's cosplayers. There's always cosplayers. Look at that. The dedication of these people. It's astounding. Sleeping with your back against the wall was also because of vampires. Okie dokie. I want to say things, but I can't. Why does no one watch this show? I want to talk about it with someone. What are we doing? We should do another drawing. Also caused by vampires, you sleeping fully under the covers for you. Vampire. Vampires can't lift covers? There's something about the cover. It just makes you feel safe. Make sure your feet are tucked in, they're not sticking out, all that sort of stuff. I confess when I was young I did have that, not for long, I was like a couple of nights of the Autons from Doctor Who. And this was back when I was watching VHSs of John Pertwee. This wasn't Christopher Eccleston or anything. They were creepier back then, I feel. The newer ones were less so, but they looked better. Maybe that's it. Maybe they needed to look rough. I need to start thinking about what I'm drawing and then talking while I'm drawing. So there's some ones for games. We've got one for music. Maybe we should do another one for music. Because this is a good sort of Forest of Doom sort of thing. But generic music stream, well, generic art stream. We should probably do one for art. It doesn't have to be clever. It can just be a simple, like they're carrying a large pencil or something, like the opening to Art Attack. What do I do? Be nice if I had one for each type of thing. It's like one for games, two for games, two for music, two for art, and they're both facing different directions. Because otherwise I'll draw all of them facing the same way. So the Vashta messed with you for a bit, but then used to have a big fear of darkness when you were a kid. The Vashta were very much underutilized because the concept of a killer shadow is very good. But I suppose there's only so much you can do with that, which is a lesson Stephen Moffat didn't learn with the Weeping Angels. Doctor Who, that's my next one I need to keep watching. Apparently the last series was good. So, what was I doing? Yes. I still want that to be... Hang on. Yeah. The Statue of Liberty is actually an angel as a natural progression of that phenomenon. Yes, it's a fun idea, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of the original. It's not in the spirit of what made them scary. Wasn't helped when you had the gaming TV in your room when you were young and your brother would play Silent Hill at night with the lights off. You had to sleep with the lights on for a while. Marvellous. I really want to play the Silent Hill games. Which is quite difficult because getting hold of them is tricky. Mostly over that fear nowadays, but sometimes it slips. Yeah, because I've seen nothing to do with 1. I've seen a playthrough of 2, I've seen a playthrough of 3, a bits of 4, and then the rest of them are bad, apparently. But I would like to play 1 at the very least. 1 and 4 intrigue me because 4 gets a lot of criticism for various reasons, and I'm interested to see why. Because it kind of has an interesting... It feels like it's... I love the idea... The one thing I know about it is it's called the room, isn't it? This idea of being locked in the room, which I think is really cool. So I'm interested to see how that could fail. You know what I mean? One more spook streams. I'm sure we will do some eventually. I do not play many spooky games. I was starting on a new one, wasn't I? This is going to be another leany back one. Stronger curves. I'll get there. I want it to be a... I'll draw an easel. I did draw an easel. It's easily. Let's hop into your inner 2008 gamer YouTuber and play Amnesia. Do I have Amnesia? I might have Amnesia. I have the Penumbra games, which I think are the precursor. But I know Amnesia was the big one. I haven't actually seen a Let's Play of Amnesia. I've seen a Let's Play of Machine for Pigs, which I thought had a really interesting story, but a very underwhelming game. You would do spook streams, but honestly, you don't know how far you get before you're just, nope, the bad thing is there, so your character's going to stay right over there. I mean, a good horror game would let you do that. and not make you feel like you're cheating. But I suppose a good horror game actually makes you go towards the thing that's horrible, like Alien Isolation or what have you. That's why you suggest co-op spook streams. Does that not take away from the spook? Nope. I don't know what perspective is going on here, but isn't it like... It doesn't matter. Dead by Daylight's a good one. Oh, that's the kind of co-op versus thing with where one person's a monster. It can magnify the spook. Would it magnify it more if people... I want to play... I know this is completely unrelated, but it is... I don't know. Not horror-themed, is it? Well, it is. Horror is a weird word. It doesn't really... I want to play Don't Starve Together with someone. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I feel like that'll be a fun game to play with people. Because I played it on my own and I just sort of... I then lost everything, as you do in that game. And then just sort of felt, well, that was a waste of time. I enjoyed it, but I have nothing to show for it. So I think it'd be nice to play with people and then you're like, yeah, we did stuff together and, you know. Yeah, that'll do. 1v4 has got very good atmosphere. Nice. I'm one of those people who I don't like playing versus multiplayer games. I like cooperative. And that one's kind of like a hybrid. The old beret. You're the same, usually prefer co-op instead of versus. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't always that way. Maybe it was because of that. I used to play a lot of Halo multiplayer versus, and that was a lot of fun. But for some reason, I'm different now. Haven't played much co-op games? Neither have I, to be honest. I just like the idea of it. How does a Parsnip hold a paintbrush? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't paint with it. Maybe. No, that doesn't make any sense. With feeling with his convenient thumbs. Never had gamer friends, so that's probably why. Scratch the word gamer, and then you have me. There's also Dead Island, which is just co-op and you really enjoy. That's a sequel to Dead Rising, isn't it? Dead Rising is where you play with a photographer. 2 has co-op, unsure about the other. I think I've seen... Yes, I have seen a Let's Play of the first one, but I know nothing of the rest. Resident Evil 5 is meant to be co-op. Yeah, I've seen the beginning of that, I think. Or was that 6? 5 or 6. One of them's got co-op anyway. There's also a co-op, I think, with one of the Revelations, or... That's another franchise I need to play. And then they spoiled it with 7 because they went back to proper horror. Like everyone wanted them to. But at least they got the opportunity to use that, use the word evil to create the Roman numerals for 7, which is very... That's the thing I remember about that game. Basically, I want it to look bad. That's the joke. Yep. I want this to be a character now. The little sidekick. Oh dear. Keep making characters. Bad enough with October. Speaking of which, that comes out soon for those of you who aren't following me on Patreon. Those of you who are following me or supporting me on Patreon get to see it a week early, of course. And you'll be able to see all the Outliers stuff as well. Though then again, if I'm doing that on stream... Here's a question. Outliers next comic is a longer one. I don't know how many pages, like 20 or 25. Would you be interested in having it released page by page as I do it? Or would you like it released all in one go? Because October is being released regularly, so you are getting regular stuff. So it's not too much of a huge incentive to have that come out regularly. I suppose I could release it sequentially and then you can ignore it if you want until it's all done. Wish you don't like this, that you have this drawing and people think, haha, he's bad at art, that's the joke, but then there's the reveal that the painting looks exactly like the character. Yeah, anyway, would people want to see... And also, what do people want to see me work on stream? Do people want to see me work on October stuff, which would then spoil the comic? That would be coming out in, like, 3 months' time. I have released... Or I have scheduled comics for... Hang on, when's the last one I scheduled? The latest scheduled comic for October is... that's the wrong thing. It's over here. The 23rd of April. So I'm fairly ahead. But yeah, would anybody want to see me work on those on stream? Would anybody want to see me work on Outliers? Or well, is there much else? Got to work on Patreon doodles. I'm behind on those. Whatever it is I decide to do instead of stickers this month or next month. The month after, technically. Not doodles. You know what I mean. Hell yeah, outliers and stickers and such. Oh, that was the other thing. So the sticker set. Let me just demonstrate. If I get up the stickers for Patreon. Well, I'll get the photo I took today. Where are we? We are... This'll do. Oop. It'll only do if I do... There we are. Okay, so here's the stickers for next month's stuff. What was quite cool about it is we had the Klein bottle cap one. And they cut out this little middle bit. Now, what that means, which was not the case with the previous sticker company I had, is that they can cut very small radius stickers. I think with Sticker Mule it was 1 inch minimum, something like that. So the next lot of stickers we do, I think, would be quite nice to do just lots and lots and lots of small ones, rather than 6 relatively large ones. So yeah, I just thought I'd say that before I forget. How many can we fit on a sheet? But like I say, they can't print next month because they're in quarantine, so... Now, if see more October Run Company, but if it spoils it, then you might be best not to do them during the stream. Yeah, but it'll... Anything I'm working on is spoilable. Outliers is definitely spoilable. Because I like my narratives with little sort of twists, and as we were talking about before, sort of telegraphing the twists and leaving the little Easter eggs for things, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like that. So everything's spoilable, but I just want to stream more during the day because I think it would be nice, particularly now that people are sort of stuck at home. It'd be nice for people to have something to watch. I'm sure you've got plenty of things to watch. Watch Inside Number 9. But, if anybody is interested in watching me, for some reason. It also holds me to account. Gets me actually working. So that's an arty one. What's another arty one? Hello, Lakira. As are you. Also, I can test the cool bit. I have never been cool. Well, thank you very much. But at the same time, I'm not going to assume that. I do also want to work... The thing is, I split up my time between comic stuff and commercial stuff. And I want to work on, like, setting up commissions and doing some poster designs and things like that for commercial stuff. But at the moment, I actually have a commission that's slowing me down that I need to work on because it's been a while. Well, it's not been a while, it's just slow going. So I can't do that because I'm doing the things... I can't prepare for a thing because I'm already doing the thing that I need to prepare for. So, but I can definitely stream that when I get around to it. So that's going to be probably a few weeks or a couple of weeks away. But yeah, next drawing. We need to do more than 4 drawings in this stream, please. Another art one. I mean, I could just do a sort of an accurate representation of... I'd say music one you remembered you already did one. I'd like to do more than one, but feels like a Cyclops there, doesn't it? No, it needs to be... Is this gonna work? Not sure this is gonna work, but it's worth a go. You have this habit when drawing sometimes, especially traditionally, just to get right up into the paper. There's no zoom on paper, I've discovered this. Don't know if anyone else noticed. Oh yeah, did I ever share... I don't think I shared the picture of the cake that I did. I made my mum a cake. Never really made a cake before. Yes, I discovered that apparently icing does not have an undo, which is a bit of a shame. There's a cake. Made a cake. It's no Control Z, which is absolutely atrocious, I know. She likes animal, so I thought I'd make an animal. Couple of mistakes. The eyebrows should have been on top of the icing. But there we are. She makes a lot of nice cakes, and I thought I'd make her one. So. I'm glad you'll like it. How does the... See, this is the problem I'm having, is that usually, on a human, we've got that going on. Unfortunately, there's a bit more that happens after the legs start. on a parsnip, so how does sitting down work? I don't know. Did you just sort of have it sticking out like that? Does this one read well? Turns out there are limitations to making a character this shape. There we are. Sorry, I forgot I was supposed to be speaking. Don't know how long I haven't been speaking for, but there I go. We'll leave that one there. See if we can't do another one. What else can we do? What else? What else? Better. Would that kind of thing be better? There's a few less changes of direction. If I do that. Come on, come on. I have absolutely zero knowledge of this piece of music. Oh, it's quite short. That's probably why.
It's nice to rest your eyes and make
It is, but I have half an hour of a stream left. Starting to sound like the Bubsy soundtrack. Oh dear. Well, my apologies. So that bit sounds like madness. I don't know why. The band madness. That is not the concept of insanity. Okay, we'll leave that. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Come back to it. So more. I mean, we can do the simple one of. They don't have to be clever. Oh good, it's speeding up. Just what I needed. Now, this music, coupled with the giant pencil is making me think of Rayman 1. Still going. This song's 5 minutes long. I'm not sure it is speeding up, it just feels like it is. Hang on, I need to listen. Yep, definitely speeding up. Sorry, just skip back to the beginning, yes, definitely. So I assume that level maybe has a time limit or something? Because usually in games music has to loop because it's indeterminate how long something's going to last. Naturellement, he says as if he's saying something profound. I bet you've never thought about this, but that's pretty straightforward. Which is sort of one of the reasons I feel like a lot of game music, sort of compared to like orchestral game music in particular, sort of holds back a bit too much because it can't rise and fall as much as a kind of static piece of music can. If you'll pardon the expression. Because it has to keep going round and round and round again. And I think in general, something I've observed with a lot of game music, sort of thinking about making my own stuff, is it's become a lot more not bland, particularly orchestral game music. It's not bland. It's become more ambient in a sense because it can't compete with dialogue. It can't compete with sound effects because they're usually important to haptic feedback and things like that. And so they have to kind of take a little bit of a back seat and just sort of set the tone. Whereas if you play older games, or games made by very small teams who, as a consequence, can't have, expansive dialogue pieces or whatever, the music's a lot thematic. The music's a lot stronger. It's got very strong melodies and very strong sort of individual sound to it. But if you've got a lot going on in a game and it's high quality and that sort of stuff, you've got to keep the music back. Otherwise, it's interfering with all the other stuff. So there's a sort of weird situation where the high budget games sort of have the least appealing music in a weird way. And the lowest budget games are the ones that have the most appealing. There are exceptions, of course. Like Cuphead wasn't a low budget game, but it has very good music because there's not a lot else to get in the way. It's an arcade game, essentially. You don't have characters with dialogue and action and, needing feedback on the combat or whatever. It's all visual, basically. So the audio can do what it wants. But then you get games like Hollow Knight, which is made by a small team, and as a consequence, the music can be sort of as strong as it needs to be because it's a game about sort of doing the same kind of thing over and over again. But something like Dishonored, for example, you can't because you've got to listen out for people. It's a stealth game. You've got to hear where people are coming from, what they're doing, the sound of a gunshot or a barking dog or whatever. That can't be. The music can't distract you from that sort of thing. There's all sorts of dialogue going around, so it can't be getting in the way of that. It's got to be much more restrained, which is why I think that soundtrack is, while very good at setting the tone, I don't listen to it separately. It's not a standalone piece of music. It's just atmosphere. I don't wish to denigrate that because it's bloody hard to do that, but as the kind of person who likes to buy soundtracks of games, I do like the soundtracks I buy to have worth listening to separately, if that makes sense. Anyway, end ramble. You get that, you listen to it when you draw, alright. There's a lot that goes into sound design. Exactly, and as a consequence, the music can't interfere with that if your sound design is very involved. Which is sort of one of the reasons I think that the Dark Souls games just avoided ambient music and only had it in a boss fight. Whereas Sekiro sort of went against that and had ambient music, and it's sort of, it does the ambience well, but it's not remarkable music in and of itself if you want to actually sit down and listen to it. It's sort of interesting. They strike an interesting balance between the two. They've got the thematic sort of boss music stuff, but also the ambient as well. Sound design's complicated, and I don't pretend to understand it, but I do kind of miss the days of the big budget games with the interesting soundtracks. It's all either sort of interesting chiptune music made by one person in their bedroom, or an entire orchestra that sounds the same as every other entire orchestra because they can't do a lot. You do love ambient music though. Again, I don't wish to take away from ambient music. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do right with regards to a world, and it's very nice to put on in the background when you're doing stuff because that's what it's designed for. But I like my music to be quite strong thematically. I like my motifs, I like my riffs, all that sort of stuff. It's personal taste. You're going to be stupid with friends on games. See ya. Have a wonderful time. Thank you for popping in. But yeah, it's interesting. I was just watching there's a composer I follow who does sort of videos of him just, hey, let's write this piece of music about this, let's go. And he's very enthusiastic, and he's like 60 years old, but he's got far more enthusiasm and pep than I do. And he did one with video games, and he took just some gameplay of, I think, an Uncharted game or something like that, and did, because he works in media composition, and he just said, hey, let's rescore this, why not? And he was talking about all this sort of stuff of how you shouldn't let your background soundtracks get in the way of things like dialogue or sound effect cues and all that sort of stuff. Interesting. It's interesting to me, anyway. Yeah, the other way around, you do like orchestral music and such, but if it's too obvious that this is the theme for this, it kind of annoys you. That's fair. Sideways on YouTube does a lot of good videos on soundtracks. Did a great one on the How to Train Your Dragon opening sequence. I haven't seen that. But that's interesting. I came across because like you can do it atmospherically, but again, you don't want it to sort of stick out and sort of annoy you and keep being repetitive. Because I watched a video on Hollow Knight's soundtrack, and that leitmotif that's bloody everywhere, and it really does pop up everywhere, and it's very interesting how it pops up everywhere and how it relates to various bits and pieces and how it sort of shifts and changes. And there were some that I didn't notice, using it as a bass line and so on and so forth. But as you say, if it is, you run the risk of, by making that sort of strong leitmotif be everywhere, you really run the risk of it just getting annoying over the course of a 30-hour game or whatever. So it's hard. It's a hard one to strike a balance with. But Hollow Knight's it was made by a small company. It was composed by one person. Not too bad. His thing was that it introduces all the themes in the opening theme in such a way that you associate a leitmotif with a certain theme without it being in your face about it. Yeah. I think leitmotif is better for games because you can interpret that leitmotif in lots and lots of different ways. So it sort of feels familiar. That's the sound of this game, or that's the sound of this character, or this place. But you need to do it in such a way that it's not the same instrument playing it at the same tempo in the same rhythm every time, because that just grates on you, you know? Okay, one more. We wanted another music one, didn't we? So... the music ones usually involve me sitting in front of a keyboard of some description, so we should probably do something like that. Or like a guitar, maybe? Are we rocking out with a guitar? I don't have a guitar. How do you do a parsnip sort of headbanging with a guitar? Yeah, see, now I've got to draw a guitar. Every keyboard is a guitar if you're strong enough, yes. I mean, having the strength to hold it and play that takes quite something. Also, the instrumentation. Sorry, this is just another thing, because I was watching the same person who was doing the video on the Hollow Knight stuff was talking about Shovel Knight. And Shovel Knight soundtrack has gotten a lot of praise, and a lot of, just a lot of praise, a lot of analysis, all this sort of stuff. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I had to mute that game because it gave me a headache. So instrumentation is also very important. What does a guitar look like? Let's get have a picture of Brett Domino or whatever. I wonder how far you have to scroll down to see a picture of Brett Domino. Oh, there's Muse. Matt Bellamy. Oh, there we go. Got it. Didn't take that long. Look at him. So it's generally speaking the right idea. Obviously there's different styles, but let's copy that one. Sort that out at some point. I guess you don't play any more RPGs, you hear more of the orchestral stuff. But the Witcher 3 soundtrack's really, really good. It's... How long did it say? The other way around, you play more. Yeah, I guessed as much. Yeah, I mean, even then, like, you can do strong... You know, like the old Final Fantasy game. Like, that's a good way to compare, actually, the older Final Fantasy games to the newer ones. Even, like, I think Final Fantasy X was, like, the kind of crossing point for that, when other musicians sort of came in, is that Uematsu, as much as I love his stuff, he doesn't do subtle. So he doesn't do sort of very many atmospheric pieces. There's always a motif, there's always a melody. And when you got the other composers in Final Fantasy X, suddenly you started getting more atmospheric things that were just sort of rhythm and sound rather than strong, sort of captivating melody. And that, again, it sets the tone, but doesn't make for an individual sort of piece of music that can be listened to. Well, it can be listened to on its own, but it won't grab your attention to do so. And the sort of subsequent games are mostly like that, except when they have to wheel out, like, you know, we need to play the Clash on the big bridge or whatever. The exceptions occasionally being something like an MMO, so Final Fantasy XIV, where you can have music like that because it's such a big, long experience of you doing the same kind of thing over and over again that it's nice to have something to take your attention away. But with an action game in particular, that kind of thing. How are we going to do this here? That'd be nice. No? Also, whoop, hang on, sorry. Stole your arm there. You're playing Fortnite with your niece again. Oh, I hope you had a good time. We have been talking game soundtracks and how they have evolved over time to be more atmospheric and less melodic. I think one of the interesting ways to approach that is with long-running series that have motifs, that have, you know, like the Zelda games and stuff like that. How, like, back in the old, you know, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time.
That wasn't necessary of you, but you have my thanks.
Faulted Spy 87604. Thank you very much for the follow. Nothing beats the Bubsy soundtrack, let's be honest. I confess I haven't listened to that on its own. But yeah, sort of back in the old sort of Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64 sort of days, the Zelda music was obviously very strong and it had those very strong motifs. But with the more modern games, they have to reinvent those ideas because they're what people think of when they think of Zelda. But they have to do so in that more atmospheric way. One of the things that this person on YouTube was talking about was how they did that with the Temple of Time theme in Breath of the Wild, and how they sort of made it into this sort of atmospheric jazzy thing with just a sort of piano, and it's there. You can sort of see it's there, but it's so sort of smothered in sound. It's very interesting. So yeah, sort of reinventing these strong ideas in such a way that they still remain strong, but not distractingly so. It's an interesting problem. But as I say, I'm certainly not trying to say that one way is bad and one way is good. It's just I personally prefer the old melodic way of doing things, but I absolutely understand why you can't really do that anymore. At least not on a, you know, Assassin's Creed-esque sort of game. You can do it with smaller games, but smaller sort of simpler graphics and feedback and sound design and all that sort of stuff. The simpler the setup, the stronger you can make the music, essentially. Because there's nothing for it to get in the way of. There's less for it to get in the way of. I would like to work on that a little bit more. Is it raining? Oh, it's raining. First time it's rained for a while. I've had my I've got a fold-out set of solar panels that I got for a birthday one day. One year. I know what day it was. Don't know what year it was. And I've started plugging it into a USB battery thing so that it charges the battery up and then use the battery to charge things overnight. And it's been so sunny the past few days, I have excess energy. I can't find enough things to charge. But given that the rain's here now, I think that's probably stopped. Still good that there are still retro games being made with old schoolish music at least. Exactly, that's exactly the kind of thing. You know, it's like saying, oh, we have all these advanced graphics and so on and so forth. Why would you want to make a game with sprites, or why would you want to make a low poly 3D game? And it's like, it's just a different thing. It's not that that's worse. it's not that having sprites or low poly or strongly melodic music is a worse thing because we're doing something different now. It's just another way of doing it, and it's interesting to see the variety. It's nice. You were joking about the Bubsy soundtrack, but you're listening to it now and it's actually kind of a pop. That's good. You know, there are many instances of terrible games with very good soundtracks, and vice versa. Tell you what, one set of soundtracks I never really got into and never quite understood the hype for were the Sonic games. Because they divided themselves roughly into sort of two parts, as far as I can ascertain. The older ones had that sort of, Genesis sort of sound and very funky kind of thing. And the modern ones are more sort of pop rock.
Excuse you, what the hell you say about Bubsy?
It doesn't have the best reputation, that's all I'm saying. Also, lots of 3D games don't look good and look boring. There's way too many brown realistic games out there. That was the PS3 generation. We have 2 million shades of brown. But yeah, I think like colourful, sort of dynamic looking games are coming back into the fray with things like, like Doom, and like the Borderlands games and all that sort of stuff. You can do sort of realistic style games, but with a much more vivid sort of colour palette. It's harder because you need to actually think about art direction, but you can do it. And yeah, like you say, the simpler you make the graphics, the easier it is to make a consistent art style. And you can make that stronger, and so on and so forth. And thus you can do the same with the music. It's all interconnected. Yeah. I would like to point out, I don't work in this industry. So I'm just rambling about whatever my opinion is. I might be wrong. Usually am. So take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Or a whopping great handful of salt. Borderlands look is so cool. They've definitely got their look down. Not necessarily my aesthetic. I like the cel shaded shading and the outlines. There was a game called 13. Do you remember the game called 13 that had that cel shading and outline style, make it look like a comic? What about that? What? Check the tweet. Okie dokie. Thank you, I love it. Thank you very much. I mean, they pull it off. Well done them, but... Do I want to retweet this? I mean, I want to. Don't get me wrong, I want to. But is it wise? You definitely style it, that's something. Was your entire mood during this drawing? Well, I'm gonna like it at the very least. I will craft a carefully worded retweet message to absolve myself of blame from this, but I will retweet it at some point. Because it is very good. But yeah. Yeah, I have completely forgotten everything I was saying. As you would when you see that. I think that was a good point to end the stream on, yeah. So, well, let's hang on. Let me have a look at them. These are the ones we did, and I will draw more of them at some point. So we did the broken controller, the Soulsborne, the artiste, one of two possible leaning forwards. I think I prefer this one. Honestly. And then walking with the pencil and rocking out with the guitar. So yeah, hopefully we'll see these on the tweets with me actually telling people that I'm streaming. That's the thing. Yeah. Hopefully I'll finish them at some point soon, despite the fact that I have 70 billion other things that I need to be doing. So yeah. Thank you for coming along. Glad you caught the end of the stream. I'm glad you could catch as much as you would like, and I'm glad you had a good time between playing the fortnights and such. Tomorrow we're not doing Ori and the Blind Forest. I just haven't changed the slides. We are continuing with Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, perfectly vanilla playthrough. You're just over here cackling to yourself because you're both embarrassed and delighted that everyone has to witness your kink faded drawing. I mean, we didn't have to, we chose to. Continue your bullying. I was not deliberate. We discussed this. I'm an idiot. It's Hadlan's razor. If you think I'm being malicious, I'm almost certainly being stupid. Anywho, so yeah, we'll continue with Dark Souls 2. The Adventures of Lee. It's not the same as Lee. Yeah, that's happening. Then back to the Noodle Gear Solid draw through, which we'll probably finish on Tuesday. More DS2 on Wednesday, and etc. and more things. Oobsley much cooler, absolutely. Definitely more human looking. So yeah. There was something else I was going to say. I don't know what it was. Nothing. I've just got... Twitter's still up. It's still on my other monitor, right next to OBS, is 2 copies, actually, of that picture. Leaves me speechless. It certainly distracts me from whatever it is I am saying and am going to say. But, yeah. Thank you? It's very good. Thank you for coming along, everyone. Have a wonderful time doing whatever it is you're doing. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend, whatever that means to you now. Weird times as these are. Yeah. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good time. And I'll see you around. Bye.